Good afternoon. Today is August 23rd, 2013, and my name is Sidney Goldman, representing the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County. And we are participating in this project sponsored by the Library of Congress, the Veterans History Project. Our honored guest today is Charles Friedman, born July 3rd, 1921. Got out of the service as a captain. He's going to give us his recollections of his life and so forth. So let's turn to him now. Mr. Friedman, thank you so much for participating in our project, and you will be part of posterity as this a CD recording this event will be on file with the Library of Congress for posterity, so future researchers, and actually some of the things you say are going to be cataloged and identified. So for example, if somebody were looking for a particular time frame or a facet of your career, they could identify you that way. So let's talk about you. And could you tell us basically about your background, where you grew up, where you were born, what you did before you went into the service, your education and so forth?
I was born in the Bronx in New York, and I did all my high school, my work in public schools and high schools, and I graduated and I went to Purdue University. And after at Purdue I had the ROTC for 4 years, and just about that time the war was on and I went right into the service.
And where did your parents come from?
My parents came from Russia. My mother was from Vitebsk and my father was from Minsk. My father came here when he was very young, so he went to college here and all that. And my mother came from Vitebsk, she came home later, and they were married.
And what kind of business was your dad in?
He was he was with the city. He worked on taxes for the properties around the city, and that's the work he did.
So tell us something about college, where you went and so forth, what you studied.
Well, I went to Purdue University, and I took chemical engineering, but they also had the military, and that was, you could take 2 years, was mandatory, because it was a college for the government.
Land grant, I think they called it, right?
Right, exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took 4 years, so when I got out, it was just about the wartime, and I went right in the service.
Mm-hmm. And going back to your family just a minute, how many were there? How many siblings did you have?
I had 2 siblings. I had 2 sisters,
Mm-hmm.
both older than me. And I knew my wife since public school, so when I got out of school, we got married, and then I went into the service.
So you went right from Purdue into the military?
That's right.
And tell us a little bit about the chronology there, what you did in the service, your training and so forth.
Well, I went to Ranger School down in Florida, and then I went to Mississippi, and from Mississippi I went overseas. And I got overseas in early March of '44, and then I went right across over to Europe, and we landed in Omaha Beach. Where we're supposed to go.
Did you come in on Omaha Beach?
Yes,
How'd you
I
get-
did.
Okay, we'll get back to that in a minute. I'm sure that's an interesting story.
I went from there over to Czechoslovakia.
Okay. And how about your training? What any interesting experiences while you were in your training?
Well, I had this Ranger school that I went to in Florida, and then later on we just trained the men. I was in the division, and we trained the men, and some other people were new, and then I got my opportunity to go overseas.
Yeah. Now I notice you're in the artillery, and how does that relate to the Rangers?
Well, it just happened that was something that they wanted us to do. They were apparently preparing a program for the Rangers, so we took that. We had a Ranger course down in Florida, and then I went back into the artillery, and I stayed in the artillery.
Now, when you were down south in Mississippi with the name Friedman,
Yeah.
did that encourage you?
It
Did you
doesn't go
encounter
over
any,
big.
anti-Semitism down there, or
There's quite a bit.
in what way? Give us a couple
Well,
of
it's very
examples.
small. You don't notice it because you're doing other things, but there is anti-Semitism there. It's obvious in a way.
But you went ahead anyhow, right?
Oh,
Not that you had a choice,
You
right?
don't have any choice.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so tell us something about now when you got overseas. Start
Well,
with,
I got
start with
overseas.
Omaha Beach if you can.
I got overseas in Scotland, and then I went to the 190th Field Artillery Group, and we stayed with them all the way to Czechoslovakia. I was there just a few months. I got there in March, and in June we were on the way to Europe.
I'm sorry for the break here, and let's continue. Okay, so you went from Scotland to Omaha Beach.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that day when you landed in the...
Well,
and so,
it's just, you know, there's so much going on there, you just don't realize what it is. You land on the beach, and I remember falling asleep, and I had a clam on my face. When I got up, I had to take them off my face. And from then on, it was just going one place to the other till we got each town, each city. It was, and I got to a town, and I had a town there, and I think it was Malmedy, before the bulge came through. And then we had to get out of there and get back because the bulge came through. And then Patton came up from the south and stopped the whole thing.
so were you at Omaha Beach on the very first day of landing?
No, I was there about a week, a little less than a week.
And being in the artillery, you were pulling your artillery pieces up and...
Yeah. Well, I was a communications officer in the group. In the group, in that group, we had 155 guns and 240 howitzers. Yeah.
And during that time, what was the situation regarding casualties around you and so forth?
Well, there's a lot of casualties. A lot of horses, besides men, there were horses. There were a lot of men. A lot of people were killed.
Do you think back often to those days?
Not too much. I did it when I came out of the service, little by little it disappears.
And how about friends? Did you lose friends or people you were close to there?
All the friends that we had, the real friends that I had, they were all in the service and they all got back. They all did very well.
So from Omaha Beach, where did you go? How did during the rest of your time in the service?
We stayed for a while in Omaha Beach, and then we broke through, and we went finally on to Paris. And when we got to Paris, we stayed there for a few days, and then from there we went toward Belgium and Holland. And then from there we went to Germany, finally got to Germany, and then we had to come back because of the bulge.
And how did the bulge affect you in that sense?
Well, it didn't affect me so bad because we got the word that we better get out, and so we got out. We were in the artillery.
To get out of Belgium?
Yeah.
Getting out of Belgium?
This was just before Germany.
Right.
We had to get out. It was in the two towns were Malmedy and Sanvith. Those were the two towns where they came through.
And where did you end up at the end of your
At
European
the end,
tour?
I was in Horažďovice. That's a little town in Czechoslovakia. And we stayed there for a few months, and then we were supposed to go to Japan. Right after that, they were going to send us to Japan, which was wasn't happy for us. But the war ended about a month and a half after that, so that all stopped, and we all started to go home.
When did you come home?
I came home in January of '46.
And so from the time of the end of the war, which was May, right? And the European war ended in May, I believe?
It ended in, yeah, right, it was, I think it was.
May 8th or something? Yeah, until you left. Where were you
Well, we
stationed?
went to various camps to get people together and then take off in units. Then we got completely dissolved. And, I went to an engineering battalion, and it was just to put a unit together and then send them off.
Now, you had a degree in engineering, and to what extent was that utilized during your military service?
Nothing, zero.
They just needed a body?
What's that?
They needed a body with some brains and leadership abilities?
You know, you studied it, but then, you know, you were out of it completely for those years, and now all of a sudden you had to go back.
Mhm.
I went to, when I got out of the Army, I went to school I went to school 11 years at night.
Where did you go?
I went to Columbia, and I went to NYU.
And did you get another degree?
I got a degree from Columbia, and then I was taking my doctorate at NYU because they had a service for that. They had a service for that. What's that?
Yeah. Let's go back to time in Europe. I think you had mentioned to one of us about one of the most unpleasant things was taking the dog tags off of soldiers who
Oh,
had
yeah.
died.
Well, that was one of my jobs. We did a lot of things. We had two officers in the two officers, we headed up this division of artillery. And it was like a headquarters battery. And we had that thing, we laid wire and things like that. And that's what we did most of the time, but all these other little jobs. I also had the job of, if you wrote a letter, I had to look at the letter and make sure that you didn't do the wrong thing.
You mean his letter to the family?
Yeah, to the family, yes. And one time, two letters came with the same guy. One went to his wife in the United States. The other went to his girlfriend, and he had the two letters mixed up. Had to give it back to him. I said, you better straighten these out.
Okay. Now, when you first went over to Europe, what rank did you have, and at what point did
Well,
you?
I was a second lieutenant when I went in,
Right.
and I finally became a captain. We had lost some people, and change hands.
Did you have, just something I was reading a book recently, do you have much contact with captured enemy soldiers? Or?
In a way, yes. In the city of Leipzig, we had a lot of people that were mixed up because we really took Leipzig, and the Russians came into Leipzig, and we had a lot of different people there, generals and people like that that we caught and had to send them to, to be interviewed and things like that. But it was a very mixed up thing, we were doing 40 different things at one time. And as you look back, it's so many things went on there, you won't believe it.
Have you read books about World War II? A lot too?
A few of them, but not too many.
Yeah.
I had enough.
You had enough. I can understand that. Yes. Okay. So, all right. So now you're back home. You're out of the service. You're going to school at night, getting
I was
degrees.
married, I had 2 children, I went to school at night, I worked.
Right. Okay.
Other
Tell us
than that, I
about
did nothing.
tell us about your work career.
Well, I worked for a company called Paragon Paint, and I worked for them for 11 years. And then I had an opportunity to go into business, and so I went into that business after 11 years.
And what was that business?
We manufactured paint and solvents, and we did a lot of work for the government. That's the kind of work I did.
And that was you were one of the owners of the company?
Yeah, I finally owned the whole company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long did you keep that company?
Well, I was in that company, and from 1959 until 1993, and then I retired. I sold the company and I retired
And where were they located?
in Jersey City.
So now, how long have you been in Stamford?
16 since January 2nd this year.
Of this year?
Yeah, because my son lives in.
Oh, and where had you lived previously?
I lived in Westfield, Connecticut. Westfield,
New
New
Jersey.
Jersey. And prior to that, New York.
Yeah. Now, you were telling us before that you were going to NYU, you were going for your doctorate,
Yes.
and you didn't complete
No, I
that?
didn't because I had a chance to go into business. So I went.
Okay. Yeah. Have you stayed in touch to any extent with people you knew in the military?
Just a few, but they were spread all over the country, and you lost track of most of them.
What was it like coming home? What kind of reception, let's say?
It was a good reception, no matter who gave it. We came home through the town of Virginia. They landed us there,
Norfolk?
Norfolk, Virginia. And then we went through all the works of getting out of the Army, and then I went home.
And how long until you got your first job?
I got my first job in April. I got out of the Army, and I had a lot of time collected that I could, that was coming to me. So I served until April, but in April I got a job. And I stayed with that job 11 years, and then I went into my husband.
And what kind of adjustment was involved going into
Well,
civilian life?
I didn't think there was much of an adjustment, but as I look back, there was a big adjustment. Now, anybody comes from the Army, you have any injuries or anything like that, they put a lot of work on it. But at that time, we didn't realize that being out there was something. And when I got home, I used to travel a subway a lot. I couldn't get on the subway. I was afraid to get on the subway. I did it, but I couldn't get on. I always thought I was a little cuckoo.
What was it, the noise level and being trapped underground?
No,
Or?
just the fact of getting on the subway.
That was yesterday's version of PTSD, maybe?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
But then that passed, and everything was okay. And you had a lot to do too. You had 2 children, you had work to do all the time, went to school.
And a company to run?
And later I ran a company until I was finished with school.
No.
And that, by the way, that's one of the best things they ever gave, is to allow people to go to school.
Yeah.
Learn the trade.
You came home by ship to Norfolk?
Yes, I came home by
How
ship.
long a trip, and what kind of voyage was it?
Well, I went across on the Aquitania, which was a big ship. It was the same as the Lusitania, same ship that was sunk in World War I. And we came back on one of these. You had a row, but we came back.
And how was the voyage?
It wasn't bad.
Yeah. How long did it take?
I don't remember exactly. The ship going overseas was a long time because we went down south and off to the side on the one kind of route we took. But that took us about a week.
And you had to avoid the submarine
Yeah,
areas.
that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
So, and coming back, it was just a few days.
Well, other than what you told us about your feelings about being in the subway, the noise and underground, what other adjustments to civilian life do you come to mind?
I can't think of any because I was too busy. I was doing too many things that it eventually passes. But I can see where men get hurt and they have problems just getting along. And, at that time, it was not such a big thing. Now it's a big thing.
This is sort of a broad question, but how did the war and your being involved in, how did it affect your life?
Well, it affected in a funny way because you see a lot of death. And you see a lot of crazy things happening here. As we went toward Germany, I had people now beginning to leave the towns that they were, a lot of them were put into towns where they weren't supposed to be, and they all wanted to go home, so they were all on the roads all over the place, trying to get home.
These are people, for example, is trying to get away from the Russians and
Yeah, they wanted to be away from the Germans, but now they saw Germany, now they wanted to go home. They wanted to go to France, they wanted to go to wherever they came from.
chaos, right?
And yeah, and the people walked in the streets, that's the way they did it. They walked in the streets.
So, looking back and being in the thick of things from Omaha Beach till the end of the war, what would you say are some lessons you learned from being in the military?
Well, I think you learn a lot of lessons, but you learn to take orders.
To do what?
Take orders. And a lot of things that you know, there's a meaning to it, you know. It's a kind of a crazy situation because there's all kinds of things going on all the time. It's very hard to pinpoint something that's important.
It sounds like, from what you've told us, from the day you arrived there till the day you left, you're in a very active, hectic environment.
Yeah, it was kind of strange to us. You know.
Now, were you injured at all? Were you injured at all?
No, I wasn't injured at all.
Did you see any camps, like Holocaust camps?
What?
Did you see any camps?
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw one camp.
Which one?
It was near Limburg. It was over the Rhine, and these people came out of the building. We were just going by. And these people came out of the building. They had their thighs were that big, you know. I did see that, yeah.
Now, was that in Germany or
In Germany, that was in
Czechoslovakia?
Germany. Yeah. I saw one. It was a small one.
Did you go in it or just go by?
No, we just went right by because we were on our way
And this was so these people were coming out of
Yeah, they
camp?
were coming out of that camp.
The Germans had just abandoned them?
They had abandoned them. They were all walking around, you know, I don't know, maybe what are we doing here? You know, all of a sudden they're free. Yeah, camps were tough.
Any of your children serve in the military?
No, they didn't, thank God.
Okay. So, looking at, you know, back and the purpose of this interview, what else might you want to bring up or talk about that?
Well, I think it's a situation that it had to be, it was very important, but at the same time, it's such a bad thing to have to do all that, to get things straightened out. It was a bad war in that a lot of people were, a lot of Jews, a lot of people were they were cut to pieces. You know. And some of the things that they did, later we found out that they did things that they just didn't care for human beings at all. It was a funny thing. When I got into Germany, we get a truck full of food if the truck came. Otherwise, we used K rations or D rations. And this time we had food, and everybody was eating. We were, you know, on the ground. That's where we ate. And then when you got through with what you ate, if you had any meat or anything like that, there was a big drum, and you threw it into the drum. You know, to get rid of it, they would bury it. And here they had the great German people were standing around with little boxes of little tubes and little glasses, things like picking out the little pieces of fat and the little pieces of food that we just threw away. And what came to my mind is these are the great society. They're going to be better than everybody in the world. They're eating nothing. They were standing there waiting for food.
Well, after your time there and what you saw,
What's that?
what kind of feelings might you have about the Germans?
Well, you had funny feelings about the Germans, you know. It took a long time to get used to that, to the way they talk, because it was pretty tough. But they also were people, too. You know. A lot of people didn't agree with what went on, but they know what you can do.
Have you been back to Europe to visit the areas you were?
I wasn't back to Germany. Well, we went to Europe, we went to France, we went to England. My wife and I traveled to Ireland.
Omaha Beach? Did you get back there at all?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I should have. Let's see, but graves.
Maybe better that you didn't. Yeah. Anything else you want to tell us? Things that we may not have touched upon.
It was a worthwhile war, and it had to be fought, but it's a waste.
Another war to end all wars, right?
We had a few of them since.
Yes, okay. So, we thank you really for your comments and recollections, and we'll be getting the CD recording this from us. Anybody else want to raise any questions? No? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you
And
very
good
much.
luck.